Welcome back to Session 0, where I discuss Dungeon World every week. I'm continuing my Dungeon World Basic Moves series today with Defend and Parley. Before covering the specific moves, I want to cover the basic anatomy of a player move for any non-Dungeon World players who may have stumbled upon this video. I'm going to include this segment in all 4 of my videos on basic moves, so feel free to skip ahead to this timestamp if you're familiar with it. But listen to it at least once if you don't mind. Some player moves just provide a benefit, like the fighter's Iron Hide, which simply states you gain +1 armor. Many provide a trigger and a benefit. The Paladin's Perfect Knight reads, when you quest, the trigger, choose 3 boons instead of 2, the benefit. Others, including all of the basic moves, have a specific trigger, call for a die roll, and provide a range of results. The trigger is simple to understand, when you do something specific in the fiction. This is meant to promote leading with fiction, because you trigger the rest of the move by stating your fictional action. A player will know which move they're planning to trigger, but everyone at the table should be listening for when triggers apply. That said, in my experience as a player and a game master, and someone who listens to and watches Dungeon World actual plays, a lot of the time players will simply say, I want to discern realities, or I want to hack and slash. This is something I fought hard against when I started GMing for Dungeon World, but really it's fine. Just remember to ask something like, what does that look like, before any dice are rolled. Next is the call for a die roll with roll plus mod. Roll plus mod means roll 2d6, add them together, and add the appropriate modifier. STR, Dex, Con, Int, Wiz, or Cha. The move will tell you which one to add. Occasionally, there will be a different modifier, such as in the Aid or Interfere move. Finally, there are typically 3 result ranges. If your roll result was 10 or higher, you do the thing with little trouble. Some moves add a 12 plus range for a greater result. If your roll result was between 7 and 9, which statistically is where most of your rolls are going to land, you'll do it, but with complications or trouble. As a player in GM, this is my favorite range because you often get a choice to make. If you roll a 6 or less, the GM says what happens and you mark XP. Gaining XP for rolling poorly is interesting because it represents learning from failure. However, I've been at tables where players make their primary stat their dump stat specifically so they can level up more quickly, and I personally don't think that's much fun. Also, the GM says what happens does not necessarily mean failure. It literally means the GM says what happens. This could lead to moments that maybe not even be possible in traditional games. The GM can say, you step heavily on a creaky floorboard and hear someone on the floor below yell out, what was that? What do you do? But the GM can say, you do the thing, and 4 guards rush in, what do you do? Most of the time, 6- roll should be a straight out failure, but it doesn't have to be. The GM has the authority to make the 6- result as cinematic as they wish. I'll start with Defend, which uses the Con modifier. When you stand in defense of a person, item, or location under attack, so person, place, or thing, roll plus Con. Whatever you're defending must be under attack for this trigger to move. A doorway, statue, courtyard, the queen, etc. Even you can be the person you're defending. This is just taking up a defensive stance rather than an aggressive one. On 10+, hold 3. On 7 to 9, hold 1. So long as you stand in defense, when you or the thing you defend is attacked, you may spend hold 1 for 1 to choose an option. It should be noted that if you no longer stand in defense, either because you've moved on or that which you defend is no longer under attack, you lose all hold gained with this move. The options are, redirect an attack from the thing you defend to yourself. This is a strong option but doesn't apply if you're defending yourself. Have the attacker's effect or damage. This is another strong option. Open up the attacker to an ally, giving that ally +1 forward against the attacker. This can be a lot of fun and very cinematic when a party is working together. You are not an ally of yourself though, so you can't use this option on yourself. However, if I was GMing a single player or playing solo, which I do often, I would allow this to happen. Of course, doing so would mean losing all of your hold because you're now attacking and thus no longer defending. Final option is deal damage to the attacker equal to your level. This obviously gets stronger as you level up. You can use more than one hold at a time too. You could, for example, redirect the attack to yourself and open up the attacker to an ally if you had 2 hold to spend. A final note on this one, I personally think you could probably roll STR or Dex for this move too, depending on how you describe your defense and even how you fight. I understand this move uses Con because it's one of the 6 modifiers, but I think with some good fiction you could probably justify to your GM using one of those other 2 options. Now let's look at Parley. So far I've been showing the basic moves as seen in the Dungeon World play sheets because I like the way they look. The wording for Parley there is different than seen in the Dungeon World rulebook. It says basically the same thing, but is a little awkward, so I'll read it directly from the book for this one. When you have leverage on a GM character and manipulate them, roll plus chop. Leverage is something they need or want. I'm not sure why those 2 sentences can't be combined, but it works fine as is. I slightly reworded this trigger for my players though. When you have something a GM character wants or needs and use it to manipulate them, roll plus chop. That's just personal preference though, the trigger works fine as written. On 10+, they do what you ask if you first promise what they ask of you. On a 7 to 9, they will do what you ask, but need some concrete assurance of your promise right now. I like this move because it's not just a charisma check to get what you want. Let's look at the trigger. You need to have something a GM character wants, be it a bribe, the materials you've been blackmailing them with, or even something sweet and wholesome like roses for their partner which they can't otherwise obtain. That can turn into a fetch quest, but whatever. And you need to manipulate them into giving you what you want. In short, there must be some history between you and that character. Either directly, you have been blackmailing them, or indirectly. Someone else told you that the guard wants roses for their lover, but their patrol keeps them far from the garden district. That's wants and needs, but you also have to manipulate them, which promotes roleplay. If you just walk up to the guard and hand them a rose, you haven't triggered Parley. In this case, I would not respond with, "Oh thank you, what do you want in exchange?" If I was a nice GM, I would tell them the requirements, you need to manipulate if you're trying to trigger Parley, and ask, "Do you want to rewind a bit and try again?" If I was a mean GM, I'd respond with, "Pretty flower, now piss off." So in this situation, how might we manipulate the guard? As a player, I might walk up to the guard with the rose in hand, take a big sniff of it, and loudly say, "We really need to get over that wall unseen." Now you have something the guard wants, the rose, and you're using it to manipulate them. As the GM, I'd respond to this with, "Oh yeah, that's Parley." The guard's eyes grow wide and the tiniest smile cracks their lips. Go ahead and roll plus chop. On a 10+, they do as you ask. In this case, they'll let you over the wall, quote unquote unseen, if you promise what they ask of you. I might be looking the other way for a minute or so if you'd part with that rose. We'll toss it down to you when we reach the top. Interestingly, you don't need to keep your promise, you only need to make it. But if you piss off this guard, you'll probably have a bad time. On a 7 to 9, they will do what you ask, but need some concrete assurance of your promise right now. Give me that rose and I'll look the other way for a bit. I realized after last week's video that I haven't been talking about 6- results when Quasar, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, asked about 6- rolls for the mental moves. If you use Defend and roll 6-, who or whatever was attacking the person, place, or thing you're defending gets a free run at it. That's pretty straightforward. 6- on Parley can be more interesting though. "You think a pretty flower will make me abandon my post?" they say as they take a small whistle from their pocket. They blow it 3 quick times and take up a defensive posture. What do? Parley can be a lot of fun, but there are a lot of moving parts and you can easily get it wrong as a GM. I definitely have gotten it wrong myself. You need to know and have what a GM character wants or needs. You need to use it to manipulate them, and you need to be willing to give it up to them, or at least promise you'll do so. So that's Defend and Parley. Let me know what I missed in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I hope you come back next week for the final video in this series when I take a look at Aid or Interfere and Defy Danger. Have a great day.